Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Weighing In, the League of Legends talk show. I'm your host, Josh, and we're back for another episode. And finally, we've got the return of Ollie. So, Ollie, after 2 weeks of no podcast, how are you doing? How does it feel to be
I'm doing
back?
great. I've missed it, to be honest. I've missed talking about League. I was ill 2 weeks ago, and then last week I can't remember. I can't actually remember why we couldn't record, but there was some.
We had some technical issues
Oh
last
yeah, yeah,
week.
yeah. That was it. I didn't have my computer.
Yeah.
And then so I'm back now, and I'm feeling good, and I'm so ready to talk about these games because I've watched all the games whilst I've been in bed, and then only having a phone to
Yeah.
watch them on.
Nothing else to do, really.
Exactly. Um,
Yeah, and you missed out on two absolutely phenomenal weeks of League of Legends. We talked about the semi-finals last week with a finals preview, and I made the prediction that Danwon would win 3-0, which I'm still quite happy
yes.
with. So we're going to dive into the finals match and then talk about the off season as the rumours are already flying, with some being confirmed, some sketchier than others. But no matter how sketchy the rumour is, we will definitely be talking about it in the second half of the podcast. So make sure you stick around for that too.
Absolutely. Um, so shall we jump straight into the finals game of Words? Because I mean,
Yes.
for
Yeah.
me, I know this game was like from the start for me there was a clear winner. Pretty much from the semi-final games, I knew kind of who I had favoured for this game. But to be honest, it was not as huge of a stomp as I thought it was going to be. I thought Damwon would come in and
Not at all.
absolutely
Yeah.
just 3-0 sweep this game and take
Hmm.
it without any issues whatsoever. Um, that's
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with just the caliber that Damwon were looking like. All of their players performing so well individually and as a team. It was going to be tough for Suning to have a good showing at the very least. I was so surprised at how well Suning played, especially in the first two games.
Yeah, me too. I think, especially for those first two games, those were the kind of ones that looked like they were the closest, and then Damwon sort of ran away with it in
Mm.
games 3 and 4. But
Yeah,
again, like you said, I
yeah.
think Suning, like obviously the big star for me, especially in game two, was Bin, and everyone talks about Bin as being
Oh
the best
man,
top laner in the world, and things like that. And
easily.
yeah,
He's he's got to be though. So let's have that discussion now because that's one of the points I wanted to kind of ask you. Do you think he's the best top laner in the world? Because for me, I don't think there's anyone who can contest him
yeah,
right now.
honestly, I think he is the best, in my opinion, without a doubt. I think that I've seen so many interviews with pros where they say, where the top laners are saying, I pray to God we don't draw Sunni because I do not want to play against
Mm.
Bin. Like every top laner was saying that in the
Yeah.
semis, like Bwipo, Nuguri, or everyone was pretty much
Hmm.
saying it. And then, you know, I mean, he proved that he is the best by getting to the finals and then uh, winning
Yeah.
them their
So
only game.
I mean, just think about like when you think about the best top laners in the world, the people you're considering are, you're thinking 369, Zoom, the Shy, who didn't even make it to
Yeah.
Worlds, and Nuguri, and then Bin as maybe your distant fourth or fifth normally, but you know, Bin beat 369 and Zoom, getting in the quarterfinals and semi-finals, and I'd say that that Bin won most of the laning phases against Nuguri.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, he put in a super dominant performance in the top lane.
Mm.
Um, and I
Yeah,
think, yeah,
it felt more like team difference rather than top difference in these
yeah,
games.
definitely. And one of the hardest things about playing top lane when you're kind of a league above the rest of your team is there's no real
Mm.
capacity for you to carry the game as a top laner because you're always going to be on those tanks like, I mean, traditionally anyway, you're always going to be on those tanks like Ornn, your Scions, those kind of champs. It's a
Yeah,
bit harder to kind of snowball a game
yeah.
from the top lane.
Mm. Although he did manage to do it on the Fiora in game two, getting the first world's final pentakill in
Yeah.
history. which is absolutely mental.
Yeah, no, and I think Fiora is something that is one of those more carry champs, and the fact that he was able to take that
Mm,
and do so incredibly well on that champion, just proves like that he can carry those games, and he is the best in the world, uh, for the top lane at least, in my opinion.
yeah, definitely. I think it's undoubtable that he was probably the best player on Suning and easily the best top laner in this
Yeah, I
tournament.
would definitely agree. Probably the highlight for me from Suning, 100%. Just I just love watching him
Yeah.
play. I love the way he is so respected as well. Everyone knows, Bin
Mm,
don't he's just like he's a big figure in the scene, especially more recently because of Worlds pretty much. People are just finding out about him
yeah.
really, especially in the West. Um, and everyone's already starting to respect him um, as being that unstoppable
Yeah.
force in the top lane.
Yeah, I definitely think that's true, and the other unstoppable force in this series really did come from the side of Damwon, and I have to say I thought Canyon had an outstandingly strong best of five. He seems to be getting better the whole tournament, but he really slapped SOFM around in this
Yeah, I
series.
would agree, and I think SOFM, someone we had talked about previously, being is he the best, most aggressive jungler in this tournament?
Yeah,
And Canyon's come and proved us completely wrong, by
yeah,
putting in a super dominant performance and not letting SOFM get anything. Like, especially in the early game when SOFM likes to go for those more aggressive
mm,
plays, Canyon's always there to counteract that, not letting him get ahead and literally just bullying him, slapping him around. Really, especially in games 3 and 4,
yeah.
like. Super great early game from Canyon in all of these games, really, and that's something SOFM is obviously known
Mm.
for.
Yeah, the most incredible thing I thought about Canyon's performance is that he just seemed to be everywhere. He was in almost every lane, getting his laners ahead, which is why it was so difficult for any of the Suning side to win a laning phase. And then he had amazing objective control as well. I don't know the exact stat off the top of my head, but it felt like I think Damwon had Soul in like two or three of the four games played, which just speaks to how many of these early objectives he was picking up.
Yeah, exactly, and like it's just all about that early game, really. And like we said, his
Mm,
early game was super dominant in this series, and like you said, he was able to control the map, be everywhere at once, it seemed, and able to
yeah,
snowball his
but
team really, really effectively.
and even in the late game, he was an absolute monster. On the two games of Graves that
Yeah,
he played, he built aggressively and he really used that damage and that power the team had given him, allowing him to hard carry. And then he did the exact same thing on the Kindred in the last game, absolutely styling on SOFM again. This guy I think was so underrated even by me, and to see him have this super strong performance and confident performance in the last game against another jungler of massive talent, I think makes him the hottest commodity at the moment in the LCK by
yeah,
far.
I would agree, and I think we can probably say that about everyone here on Damn One, is they are just such a
Mm,
league above anyone else in any region, really, and they've proved that by
yeah.
you know every single player on this team turning up in the world's finals, doing their bit. Everyone had a part to
Mm,
play from this team, and I think you know
yeah.
all of these players are just incredible, and I wouldn't be surprised if they stay together and go on to get win worlds consecutively twice in a row. Honestly,
I I do think we could start to see the re-emergence of the LCK dynasty because although LCK didn't fare massively well at the tournament itself, when you think about both DRX and Gen G losing in quarterfinals, with how dominant Damwon was, if they stay together with the same coaching staff next year, I don't see how anyone in the LCK will beat them. And then we almost definitely see this team making another deep run at Worlds next
yeah,
year.
exactly, and I think that's so exciting to me because we're seeing this team
Mm,
emerge from, what used to what I mean, all of these players coming from. I don't know if they're all from Korea, but all of these players coming out
yes,
of
they are.
Korea. Yeah, I thought they were an all
Yeah.
Korean team. Yeah, all of these players coming out of Korea.
Yeah.
It's really amazing to see a team like Damwon with this you know just crazy performance team, hyper carrying on every single role, and I think it's so exciting. It's exciting League
Yeah.
Legends to watch from this team.
And it's great to see that sticking together counts, because if you think back of the history of this team, we had Nuguri and Showmaker. Excuse me. Nuguri, Showmaker, and Beryl have been on the team since 2017. They spent 3 years on this team, and then the year after they joined, we had Canyon and who else? Just Canyon joined that year, and then they had Nuclear on the team for a while, and then they only got Ghost at the start of 2020, and that just absolutely changed the
Yeah, I
team.
agree.
And so I think this is going to give a lot of teams hope that they don't take a roster which is almost amazing and throw everything out. They slowly change the pieces to make an absolutely incredible team that can go on to win a world championship.
Yeah, I agree, and I think someone you highlighted there was Ghost joining the team earlier this year,
Mm,
and I think his performance in the final was something
yeah,
we have to talk about as well, because I think he played out of his mind,
100%.
and he's someone I've always said I love to watch play. I love to watch him playing. I love to watch ADCs when they pop off and they're styling on enemies.
Yeah, he was he's absolutely mental. And like I know that we spoke about Canyon being underrated, but coming into this tournament, even I said that Ghost was going to be the weak side player, not doing amazing, really struggling. And oh my god, he was mental this
Yeah, I
tournament.
agree. I think he absolutely showed up and showing that he has
Mhm.
such a huge variety of champions as well. I think this has got to be
Yeah,
terrifying for other top ADCs.
he he played four different champions in the finals, and I'd say he looked like one of, if not the best AD carries in the world on all four of them.
Exactly, and you know, a game that I must highlight because I love seeing Jin in games is Game 3 where Ghost was pretty much able to just, not really get bullied in his lane like we see late game Jins really do.
Mm.
Was able to hold his line, was able to get those roots when necessary, start the team fights off with the curtain calls, and again, like you said, he just looks like a world-class ADC, and there's no fault in his gameplay whatsoever, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I have to say it's so incredible because he plays so many different styles of AD carries. He really impressed me on the Jhin, like you said, being able to really control the fights, move in, move out, use that fourth shot, which is such a powerful part of his kit to lock down the kills that he really needed to. And locking down with the root, it was just amazing to see how varied and how deep this guy can go with his
Yeah, exactly.
champions.
And you highlighted the fourth shot on Jin there is something that this team have always
Mhm.
been really, really good at utilizing, especially Ghost. With the fourth shot, you can secure objectives much easier as well because you get that big crit and a smite that's like 2000 damage. And this is something they did in this game as well. And I think it just shows that the levels that they go
Yeah,
to in terms of their macro, in terms of their team play, it's kind of just a
yeah,
step above lots of other teams.
yeah. 100%. It is when I try and assess a team, it's really easy to sing their praises. But one of the important thought experiments that I like to do is try and think how this team loses. What's this team's weak point? Is it a weak player? Are they bad at early game? Are they bad at late game? And when I try and do that for Damwon, it's almost like they don't have a weakness. It seems like everyone on their team is an all-star.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only reason I see them losing a game is if they get hard outdrafted. Like in game two, we kind of saw them get
Mm.
pretty much hard outdrafted, and that's the game that they lost.
Yeah,
And they were really really hard outdrafted in that game with the SOFM picking
mhm.
up Rengar. Um,
Which
yeah,
was genius. Can we just touch on that for a second? What a incredible pick into one of Canyon's favorite aggressive champions on their Evelyn, and it just plays in so well because it does almost exactly what an
yeah,
Evelyn does.
exactly. Obviously, you don't have the perma invisibility, but you can get those one shots, and you can also be a bit more effective
Yeah,
inside the team
but
fights as Rengar.
mm, as we saw, because the build was super interesting from SOFM, where he went a more tanky Rengar, and that paid off massively around the final dragon for Suning to get Drake Soul, where he was able to get two members of Damwon Gaming right close to him and use the heal and almost go back to full health so then he could stay alive long enough to smite the dragon. It was just amazing to see how prepared Suning were to come in, even as the
Yeah,
underdogs.
exactly, and I think SOFM is clearly the highlight, and especially in this game, he was the highlight. But like you said, he built that tanky kind of route on Rengar, which I love to see, because you still have that one-shot potential on something like the ADC, a squishy champ, but then again, you have that more team fight ability, and like you said, locking down those objectives is much easier if you're a more tanky style jungler. Um,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
this is something he just did to perfection.
Um, it is mind blowing to see, and I hope that a lot of the Suning players can come back even stronger next year with just more experience under their belt. Because, I mean, this was the number 3 seed coming in from the LPL, and for them to make World Finals is absolutely insane, beating the first and second seed from the LPL. It just speaks to how much depth this region has.
Yeah, I agree. I think, the LPL's always been something that's a bit looked down on in terms of when you think of the best teams in the
Mm.
East, the LCK has always been like the most dominant, especially, I mean, maybe not super recently, but they've always been that
Yeah.
region that's regarded as the one of the best, if not the best, like by lots and lots of people. Definitely. But it's great to see LPL making a comeback. And to be fair, overall,
Mm.
they had a pretty good run making it to the semis. And there was
Yeah.
an
I mean,
LPL
they
clash.
they had three they had 3 of the 4
Yeah.
teams in the sorry 3 of the 8 teams in the quarterfinals. Almost half of the teams were from the LPL.
Yeah.
Um, it, and they and JDG almost got out, and then it would have been half of the teams. It really speaks to how great this region is and has been and will probably be again next year. I'm interested to see how the roster moves look in the LPL. They've been keeping very quiet about it at the moment, but I expect some of these teams to merge together, and I think we'll see an even stronger number 1 LPL seed
Yeah, and
next
that's
year.
something that's super exciting as well. And just touching on the teams that could have made it, like if we seen a top esports versus G2 game, I think we could have easily seen top esports go into the finals. Um, and I
Yeah,
would have loved to see a top versus Damwon final. That would have been something super super special, I think.
yeah, definitely. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that this is probably the best Worlds finals we've had in recent history. I tried to think back, and the only one that I can think of that I enjoyed as much was probably the SKT Rocks one, I think from
Yeah.
2016 or something, because the past few years have been 3-0s, not super interesting. This, at least, was an amazing and a fitting World
Yeah,
Championship
I agree. I
final.
think this is definitely the most exciting finals and Worlds as a whole that we've had in a long time. I think this Worlds, like
Yeah,
even just from the planes, was super tense. Like, and then going
yeah,
into the group stages, the groups were amazing this year. I think they're probably some of the best groups we've seen in a
mm,
long time. There was no real group of death, which I
yeah,
think is quite a good thing. Um, because there's no teams that got immediately shafted, uh, except for maybe lower down teams that came through the playoffs, like Rogue, those kind of teams. But
yeah.
you know what I mean. It's been a really close contest, and I think it's probably the best worlds we've had in at least the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, definitely. And it makes me just so much more excited now for next year to come around already and to see what the teams in all of these regions are going to do, how they're going to get better, what crazy roster moves we're going to see. I absolutely can't wait. This has reinvigorated my love of League esports and also made me want to play the game a little bit, which is something that I haven't done for a very long time. I much prefer watching it at the moment. I
Oh,
don't know
I'm
about
I'm
you.
addicted to playing it, so I can't speak on that.
Okay, well, maybe we'll have to jump on for a
Maybe
game after we finish
I
recording
was
this
gonna
one. We'll have to
ask.
see.
I was gonna ask.
Oh, all right. We'll see. I don't have to be in tomorrow morning, so that's good for me.
Brilliant.
Um, so looking forward to the off season, we have so many rumors flying around. Do you want to take roster rumors first, or do you want to talk about the rumored LCS format changes first.
We could talk about the new LCS format that's been rumored. We can talk about that first because that's
Yeah,
something I've found really, really, really interesting. So I'll
mm,
just
yeah.
basically,
Do you want to break
yeah,
because you just watched the video? I know. So this was so I should say before we talk about anything, this is a rumor. It's been reported by Travis Gafford as a rumor today, but I've heard from a number of other sources that this type of change is really
yeah.
likely
So
to
this is
happen.
not 100% confirmed, but this is just what there's loads of rumors from
Yeah.
obviously trusted sources in the esports scene. But anyway, so basically the breakdown of it is so there were two main points. There's a new LCS format and there's a new kind of academy and amateur scene merge that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Um, and so basically there's
Yeah.
going to be new competitions which involve the amateur and the academy scene being more closely linked and
Hmm.
basically a merge. And for me, I think this is quite a good change. I think it allows the pro teams to uh, be able to scout more talent and have more players available to them
Yeah.
because sometimes if you're in the amateur scene below the academy, which is a huge scene by the way, if you don't know
Mm.
about it, it's actually it
It
is
is
massive
massive.
and
Yeah.
it's a great way for people to eventually get into academy, but it is quite hard to get into
Mm.
academy. Um,
Yeah, I think one of the best things about this is that it's going to dissuade kind of players who have been in the LCS for a while from taking a almost like a backseat in academy and just collecting a paycheck because they're still going to have to constantly prove now that they're better than the people underneath them rather than just sitting on the bottom ladder collecting
Yeah,
a
exactly,
paycheck.
and I think, like you said, if pros are retiring, thinking of joining the academy, it's going to put a lot of pressure on them. So it kind of, yeah, like you said,
Mm.
this ways you pretty much summed it up perfectly. Um, uh,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think like it gives these players more opportunity to be spotted by these
Mm.
LCS teams and teams from all over the world, and it just gives lots of young talent more opportunity, and I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, 100%. And then the other part of this rumored change is to the LCS itself. So the rumor is that we're going to get rid of spring split and instead have one long season similar to like football in the UK, for instance. And there's going to have each team is going to play 5 games against each other team, which means that the season will have like just slightly more than the spring split and the summer split's worth of games combined, but that will run throughout the year. And there's also some rumors about having a small kickoff tournament before the season starts and a month's break for an MSI tournament qualifier from North America and then MSI itself as
Yeah,
well.
so again, this is something I thought was a really interesting kind of avenue for them to take. Just in the one thing I thought was interesting is just the LCS that's planning to do this. So just the North American
Yeah,
scene, and I think it's great. I think playing more games per year is obviously a great thing for the teams. We get to
amazing.
watch more League of Legends. Now I think it's Friday, Saturday,
Yep.
and Sunday are going to be full days of games, which I think is a great thing.
It's the only way I think it's the only way that they can make it work, which is a really interesting thing because there's been lots of talk about the LCS going to one specific like media outlet, whether that be Twitch, YouTube, or something else. And I think this might be a sign that that's likely to happen because if you can say instead of having 10 hours of content a week, I'm going to provide 15, 16, 17 hours of content a week, that's much more likely to get a bigger deal from one of these media providers, which would just give a boost of funding towards the
Definitely, and
LCS
I
again.
think a boost of funding could definitely help for this kind of a situation because playing more games, they'll have to stream more games. It's going to cost them
Yeah,
more to hire casters, hire the analysts, etc. Pay them for more work.
yeah, and just I mean, just keep the
Yeah,
lights on
and I
essentially.
think maybe if we see the LCS go towards a more like mainstream, this technically is just a more mainstream kind of way of streaming sports, in my opinion. And I think that
Definitely.
if they do move towards like a more mainstream uh, kind of uh, kind of format, will they introduce
Mm.
things that other mainstream sports do? And this is just pure speculation from my brain, but maybe they'll start
Yeah.
introducing like not all the games are streamed. You have to pay to watch them, like Sky Sports, for example,
Mm.
which is
So uh, I think it would be really interesting to see what kind of model they go with, because we've seen the LCS so far take on a more like sponsored role. So rather than the viewer paying, more of the segments are sponsored, which is very different to what we have in the UK, where there's not really a lot of sponsorships. You wouldn't ever get a State Farm analyst desk, for instance, in the UK football scene, but then you have to pay for games. So it's the trade-off that I think they'll have to make a real decision on sooner rather
yeah,
than
it's it
later.
that is true. That's an interesting point, and I think even bringing that up, we could see them. I mean, whatever model they decide, there's a bunch of different varieties they could go for. Like you said, they could
Mm,
not do what I said, just have sponsors and stuff like that, or they could move towards a more
yeah, I mean,
like separated kind of format where there's they get those external analysts like you have in like football or whatever, where they're on a payroll, blah blah blah. Um, but
yeah,
it'll be very interesting to see
I
what kind of format they do go for.
it wouldn't surprise me if they are aiming to get more sponsorships in to avoid having to have the viewers pay for it. Because another thing, having more games means that you can have more sponsors. You could have Friday sponsored by one company, Saturday another, and Sunday another. And like the more product you have, the more sponsors you can have. So that might be their way of testing whether or not they can get away without a pay to
Yeah, I
watch
agree, and
model.
I think if they do decide to implement a pay-to-watch model, I think that's gonna the backlash on that is going to be absolutely massive. Just considering all
Mm,
esports has always been free to stream since the creation on sites like YouTube
yeah.
and Twitch. You can just go click there. You might get a 30-second ad, but then the whole stream's free to watch. You've never had to
Mm,
pay to watch League of Legends or any other esport games.
yeah. Would you pay? Obviously, depending on the price, but if it was reasonable and not like going to bankrupt you, would you pay to
Or
watch the
it depends.
LCS?
It depends if it is very expensive because, you know, and I'm not saying I would ever do this personally, but there have been times when I've wanted to watch football games and I have not been able to afford the £15 box office charge, which is an actual charge on some of the
Yeah,
games. And I found a live stream on websites such as Twitch or YouTube where you can watch the game, and I guarantee you that the same thing is will happen if they decide to
yeah.
implement that. Um,
And I think it will cause more if they decide to ask people to pay. It will cause more problems around co-streaming, for instance, which has been a
yeah,
massive boon for for the LCS this year.
yeah, I agree. I think you have streamers like LS, and he gets all the pros on
Mm.
like every week to co-stream the games, and he's getting like 30K viewers on those
Yeah,
streams, which is huge for an
yeah.
independent
It's
co-caster.
what I watch.
Yeah, me too.
It's what I watch. So yeah, yeah. If you haven't watched Ellis's LCS co-streams, they are the best in my opinion. Although he does get a little bit
Yeah.
distracted sometimes. He has some absolutely incredible level of analysis, and it's great to hear other pro players take on his opinions and of how
Yeah,
the game's
exactly. And I
going.
think Ellis is someone who can teach something to everyone, no matter what level you are at the game. I think I've
Yeah,
loved watching Ellis, learned loads from him, and his streams are great as well. So definitely go check out his co-streams because those are really good. And he's friends with
yeah.
a lot of the pros as
Oh,
well. Um, like Nemesis, Crown Shot, those kind of people, and he gets them on frequently, and it's
yeah.
great to hear them talk. He'll interview them sometimes and stuff. Uh, yeah, and I think it's a really interesting watch.
Mm. Well, unless you've got anything else you want to talk about the LCS format changes specifically, we do have some more LS
Yeah,
topics to talk
yeah,
about.
indeed. So
So I don't I don't know how much you know about exactly how this rumor formed, but essentially, effort is the or has been the T1 support for some time now, and he was streaming, and on one screen on his Discord, there was a message in the T1 general chat, which was translated from Korean, and it essentially said, "Welcome to the team, Polt and LS." Presumably both as coaches rather than players. LS we've just talked about, but Polt is a very, very well known and successful StarCraft 2 player. And so, what do you think, Ollie? Is LS joining T1 a good thing if
Yeah,
it
I think
happens?
it's absolutely amazing. I think LS has so
Mm,
much to teach, and especially with a team like T1 where they haven't had the best year. I think definitely some kind of managerial
yeah.
coaching staff change is a great thing for T1,
Mm,
no matter who it is. But it is LS, and I think that is a great thing because I know he
yeah.
has talked with Faker on multiple occasions, and
Mm,
he knows the rest of the T1 guys already. Um, and yeah, I think it's a great move for him. Um,
yeah. I agree partly. So I think that LS could be an amazing coach. I think that he has a level of game knowledge, and just the way he thinks about the game is almost unrivaled. My biggest concern with this move is the fact that he would be going to T1, because there are a lot of egos on this team. And I don't know, how many times do you think it will take Faker to disagree with LS before no one listens to LS
that is
anymore?
probably true because
Because how do you argue with the greatest player of all time if you're not that person who's been with him and been that like almost father figure that Coma was for the whole time he's been on
yeah, I think
SKT?
you're probably right, but I feel like LS, especially more now, is a lot more respected within the community. Everyone kind of knows about
Mm,
him and knows that he is knowledgeable about the game, and obviously he's been in Korea for a long time now as well, so
yeah.
all the Korean pros know who he is. He casts the games, he's on the analyst desk, etc. So I feel like it's interesting because like you said, T1 is full of egos. I mean, I don't know 100%, but I'm guessing being called the best player in the world millions and millions of times has to get to your head, right? Um,
Mhm. Of
and
course.
like you said, there's definitely going to be conflicts, but if they can work around those, I think that
Mhm.
this movie is great.
Yeah, I think it'll be really, really interesting to see. And I think that one of the few things that gives me hope about this move is the fact that it's rumored that Polt will also be going over. And I think, having been a top tier esports player before, been performing as one of the best of the best, and having gone through the system of T1, or like the system of other Korean teams, sorry, I think he could come in as a head coach and kind of guide the discussions within the team, be that person who facilitates genuine, productive conversations between someone like Faker and someone like LS, rather than any kind of friction building
Yeah,
up there.
I 100% agree, and I think you mentioned Polt being the head coach. That was actually part of the Discord message welcoming LS and Polt, saying Polt as their new head coach. So
Yeah.
that's something that, if this rumor is true, then that is likely to be true as well. Um, and yeah, like you said, I think that's
Mhm.
great. I think um, Polt will provide that kind of father figure that you touched on before, whereas LS is someone who is, a super, maybe not controversial, but super knowledgeable, slightly controversial.
I would say, I would say controversial. I think the way that I often find people talk about LS is either they absolutely love him and they think he is an amazing analyst and thinks about the game like no one else does, or they
Yeah.
absolutely hate him. And there's lots of semi-valid reasons to not like him. He is very strong in his opinions and he loves to question the status quo, which can rub a lot of people the wrong way. But he's definitely someone who will push the whole team to think more about what they're doing, which is often a
Yeah,
good thing.
exactly. I think he's definitely an extremely thought-provoking kind of guy. He loves to think about um, the in-depth stuff in terms of the game and outside of the game as well. And I think that's a super important thing for a coach to have, is a great understanding of the game and breaking down its mechanics, and just having such a vast knowledge, and especially being a caster as well. I think being a caster can definitely help you with game knowledge, because I know lots of casters, they will be able to tell you a billion things about the game straight off the top of their head. Whether that's, they
Yeah,
can probably list every single name of every ability in the game. And just, it's just things like that where they picked up that knowledge from being in that scene, and also being an analyst as well
yeah,
is super helpful.
yeah. No, I think it would be really interesting to see, because we've seen some other analysts and commentators move into coaching roles recently. You think about Jat for Team Liquid, who had really good success. We've had Yamato
Yep.
Cannon do relatively well with Sandbox in Korea. It will be so interesting to see whether or not this move can pay off in the long run, if it eventually is found out to be.
Yeah, I agree. I think in the long run it will definitely be benefit to everyone involved, I think. And so I don't know if we have much else to talk about that. Just
No, I
one
was
thing I
gonna.
wanted to add is
Sorry.
T1 recently. This is just some like random bit of news. Everyone's probably heard it already, but they signed Tyler One as a content creator, which is something that has
Yeah,
apparently been in the pipeline for a long time. Since I think, I can't remember if it was last year, they
yeah,
that Tyler actually went and did a video with Faker on for the T1 channel. Yeah, so
yeah. It was
since then
last
there've
year.
been talks, and finally it's been official. Yeah, he's joined T1 officially as a content creator. So that's just some news. I thought it was quite cool. Um,
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see more of these content creators who play League mainly getting picked up by teams, just to improve the brand of teams, especially Eastern teams trying to improve their Western brand. I think is really good, because the more that people around the world can watch other leagues that aren't their own region, I think it's only beneficial, right, for
yeah,
the
and
whole
it's
kind of
it's
scene.
mutually beneficial as well, because you'll have the LCK fans who hear about Tyler One, and he'll get more people watching his stream,
Yeah,
and vice versa. So I think it's definitely a mutually beneficial
yeah,
relationship there, and it's great to see. Getting those Eastern
yeah,
teams getting more
100.
involved in the West. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, definitely. And let's stay in the West for now. Let's stay in the western part of the West, North America, and let's talk first about the one piece of news which has been confirmed before we go on to talk about some of the other NA rumors. And that piece is something that took me by massive shock, and I know you felt a similar way. It's the fact that Bjergsen, the team solo mid laner, is retiring from competitive play this
Yeah,
year.
and it was honestly, for me, not a huge shock, but it was still so sad to hear the news, because, well, for me at least, I think he,
Mhm.
even for his last split, was just such leagues above any other top laner in North America, and I think he even had so
Yeah.
much more potential as a player. I think it's super sad to see him go.
It's so rare to see someone who kind of had a really long career. There were ups and downs, but he's always been arguably the best mid laner in North America. It's really strange to see him have such an incredible year, literally carry TSM to winning the North American Summer Finals, and regardless of his poor performance at Worlds, that simple fact makes it surprising that after such a great performance, he's deciding to step down from
Yeah,
the
I
team.
think, he could have potentially made a. I know he wanted to obviously stay with TSM. He's been there since he started playing
Mm.
professionally, pretty much. Um, but
Yeah,
if there were some roster changes within TSM, they could have gone on to win Worlds with the best North American mid laner in the world, Bjergsen, if he had stayed on the team. But
yeah.
and I think it's super
I
sad to see him now stepping down. It's just
Yeah.
it's such a shame.
With the way this guy plays, and he improves every year, there's no reason why he couldn't have played and been the best in North America for another 2, 3, maybe more years. So it'll be really interesting to see how he performs in his new role on TSM as the new head coach, taking up almost a cursed position when you look at TSM history.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely going to be he's going to go on to win things regardless of whether he's a player or a coach. And as a coach, I think,
Mm.
he has such good potential to be an amazing coach as well. And hopefully we see him be a coach for at least like the next 5 years, depending on, what happens and stuff.
I I expect him to be in TSM for a really long time, especially considering that this at the start of this year, when he re-signed his contract, he was able to get stock options and be a part owner of the team. I just think that it's likely he's going to be around for a really long time, and I think he'll be a great head coach because he's clearly someone that all the players will respect.
Yeah, 100%. And whoever moves to this team is definitely going to be very, very thankful to have someone like Bjergsen to teach them and guide
Mm.
them. And I'm going to throw a, uh, a speculation out there as to who I think is going to join TSM as a new mid laner. I
Yeah.
think Nemesis from Fnatic is going to move to TSM
Ooh,
and become the next superstar.
that's a spicy. That's a spicy take. So let me talk about my thought process before I tell you who I think is going to join and replace Bjergsen, because this has to be an either an all-star superstar, like one of the best mid laners in the world, or it has to be a rookie that Bjergsen can mold and turn into a superstar. Otherwise, the fans are just going to go crazy and ask why Bjergsen would consider stepping down for someone who they think is worse than him. And so we kind of got two groups of people, and I just feel like Nemesis doesn't necessarily fall into either one of those unless he's going to have some sort of massive step up in his solo carry
Well,
performance when
well,
coming
I
to NA.
feel as though Nemesis hasn't been in the professional scene for too long. Um, he still has
Mm,
room to grow, in my opinion, and I know lots of people think he's always been the weak link on the teams that he's been on, but I feel like he has a lot of
yeah,
potential still, and with a move to TSM, maybe under Bjergsen's wing, he can grow and flourish into a potential superstar, and I think he definitely has the potential to do that. He has the patience in game. He has the mechanics. He has and one
yeah,
reason I love watching him play is because he is such a patient player. I think he is so disciplined in game, and he doesn't really make those rash decisions that some mid laners go for these insane carry plays. Whereas
mm,
he likes to kind of play that slow roll. And I think under Bjergsen's wing, he can flourish 100% into one of the best. That's what I believe anyway.
yeah. Well, it'll be super interesting to see. And when it comes to who, when I think about who could replace him, who I want to replace him, who would really excite me, and there's only two players on my list who are even close to being realistic, it would be Chovy from DRX or Perks from G2. He's reportedly thinking he might be leaving the team anyway. So I'd be so happy with either of those players, but I think who will replace him is probably Sword from the from the TSM Academy roster, because there's lots of positive talk around him, and he would be a young player that the Oakson could really mold into the next NA LCS
Yeah, and I
talent.
think honestly that's probably a really good choice for them to do because he's known Bjergsen being in the academy. They already probably have built up some relationship.
Mm,
I'm not too sure, but I can imagine there already is, and therefore it's much easier
yeah,
than starting from scratch with someone completely new. And Bjergsen can help him, coach him, etc. And uh, and I
yeah.
think it's a great thing that this can happen. And yeah, no, that's one of the options. 100%. There's other options, of course. Um, but yeah, I think that's definitely something positive.
And it's also rumored that Broken Blade might not have his contract renewed by TSM also. So it'll be really interesting to see how many changes TSM decide to make while Bjergsen is retiring. I think that this is the team who's been performing really well in North America. So if make lots of changes. I think that's a real signal that winning North America isn't good enough for this team anymore, and that they need to start showing some international level of performance. Otherwise, it's just going to be a failure year after
Yeah, and
year.
I agree. I think, there has to be some kind of change that. Sorry, I cannot get my words out. Um, I need a drink. But yeah, I think there definitely needs to be
uh,
something that happens, like you said. Otherwise, they will keep failing year upon year. But I have faith in the team, and I'm sure you do as well. Uh,
hmm. I do. Another team that I really do have faith in, if this rumored lineup goes through, is the Team Liquid lineup. Apparently, they're going to be changing their mid and their top and jungle. They're going to be replacing Impact and Broxer for Alfari from Origin and Santorin from FlyQuest, while retaining Jensen and Tactical and Core JJ as well. And this would be a fucking
yeah, I
all-star
agree. That
team.
that that roster is absolutely ridiculous. I think it has crazy
Mm.
potential as well, and I know. And we'll talk about the Fnatic changes that are likely to happen later. But I
Yeah,
know Fnatic's standpoint on Bwipo was they'll only change him if they can get Alfari. Um, so it just
yeah,
it speaks levels of that.
he's
Yeah, exactly.
so good, and it's a crazy budget. It's been reported that they're spending for this roster. The room is just over $5 million
Yeah,
per
and
year.
that's absolutely ridiculous, and it just shows how much the industry is growing, and how much these
Yeah,
players are getting paid because I can imagine some of them are making
mm,
a lot of cash, to be honest.
yeah. I think Alfari and Jensen have both got just over $1 million per year
Jesus Christ.
contracts.
And I read something, I can't
Yeah,
remember what team it was. Maybe it was T1, but this was leaked from well, not leaked. Whippo said it on a podcast recently. I can't remember what podcast it was with. Maybe it was Foreign's, but I'm not 100% sure. He said that
I think it was. Yeah.
some Korean team offered him $2.4 million for, was it a 2-year contract? Let me
Ooh.
just Google this quickly, so I'm
Oh,
not getting this wrong.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. Some of these players are being paid so much, and I think especially the ones such as Alpha who are coming over as great European talents over to these North American orgs. And I think it's a totally fair decision. And the more kind of players like that who come over, the more competitive I think NA is going to be in the coming years. We think about this Team Liquid lineup. I think they can have a genuine chance of making a run to maybe semi-finals of Worlds. It would be a massive disappointment if this level of team didn't at least get
Yeah, I
into
agree. I think,
quarterfinals.
with the talent that's on that team, I'm super excited. And just to go back to the point I was saying before,
Mm.
I got it a bit wrong. Bwipo,
Yeah.
it was on the Foreign's podcast, said that he was offered $2.4 million for a 2-year deal with 100 Thieves. So that was back in 2018. Yeah, and
I
so
mean, it doesn't surprise me. I think lots of these North American teams would really like a strong top laner, especially after how poorly all of the North American top laners fared at Worlds this year.
yeah, definitely. I think uh, Bwipo's someone who is probably not going to move from Fnatic now because I think he's kind of found his home.
Yeah.
But he's only going to grow on Fnatic, and then eventually, um, he might move. You never know. But that was 2 years ago, and he decided not
Yeah.
to take that a 2.4
It
million
was two
deal.
years ago.
I think that speaks to
I mean,
like his commitment.
he might be worth more now, is the truth of it. He
Yeah.
might genuinely be worth more. A player who, if he leaves his team, is going to be the hottest commodity, I think, of this off season, is Perks. And we've seen this guy move around a lot between different positions, changing mid to AD carry with Caps coming into the team. And there's always been some slight murmurings that maybe there's the fact that he really doesn't want to play AD carry, and that seems to have come to fruition this off season with G2 apparently rumored to have decide between having to decide whether to keep Caps or Perks, as both of them want to play mid lane, and neither are really willing to step aside and play in the AD carry position.
Yeah, I think the problem with this is, you have these two people who are traditionally mid laners. Caps has never really played
Mm.
ADC. Perks has been in that role for the whole of the season, and now wants to play
Yeah.
mid lane. It's kind of, I guess, I mean, he's obviously free to do whatever he wants, and whichever team he goes to, I think picking up Perks as a mid laner will be a great benefit. And there's
Yeah.
rumors. I'm not sure how familiar you are with them, but I'm not very familiar with them at all about him moving to Fnatic if Nemesis does leave Fnatic. I don't know
Mm.
how much you know about that.
I I so at this point, the really difficult thing is we're almost stacking rumors on top of rumors. So I've heard quite good rumors about Perks leaving G2, and I've heard quite good rumors about Nemesis leaving Fnatic. The bit that gets a little bit dicey in the rumor mill at the moment is where Perks would be going, whether or not he could take Nemesis' position. But if he does, that would be amazing, and I think Fnatic could maybe become the best team in Europe.
Yeah, I think that will be a huge significant change. And I think if Perks is playing alongside players like Reckless in the bot lane, who is a better ADC obviously than Perks, obviously
Yeah.
has that stronger bot side. Alongside him with a stronger mid laner than Nemesis, I think this
Mm.
this team has the potential to do great things. And I know just speaking on some of the other Fnatic rumors, there's not huge rumors for the rest of them, but I don't know if you know who it is, but Wooloo, who's
Yes.
has
Yeah. Yeah.
has obviously talked about apparently Hylissang's been offered um, lots by lots of North American and European teams.
Yeah. I've heard it from other people outside of him as well.
Yeah. So and I think honestly he is probably uh, going to be highly contested for because
Ooh.
he is a great ADC support rather.
I'm just Yeah, I'm just scrolling. You've just made like so I get a lot of my rumors from lots of different sources. So Travis Gafford puts out some really good videos, just kind of summarizing all the rumors that he heard and other people. The one that dropped about 20 minutes ago, as we record this podcast, is that apparently Broken Blade might be going to Schalke um,
Wow.
next year, with Schalke already confirming that they're keeping Gilius for the 2021
Yeah.
season. So that would be a really interesting top jungle duo, which I think would work really well in my opinion.
Yeah, me too. I think that is would be a great move, but then it leads on to the question who would fill that top lane spot for TSM.
And I mean, it's got to be someone great. I think that to make a real statement for TSM, having a new all-star top laner and a new mid laner that people are happy to kind of take over Bjergsen's spot could really change the perception of this team after what was a terrible world showing.
Yeah, I agree. And like you said, it has to be someone super strong. But one thing I'm reading here is just under that post you've seen on Twitter, it says Broken Blade already has EU residency, so this rumor is like a bit of a strong one, I suppose, because he already
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
there'll be no issues with the NA to EU import that have happened before, obviously, um, which is a good thing. And yeah, if he decides to move, then I think that would be great for Schalke. Uh, really.
Yeah, no, I think there will be so many of these kind of changes that could happen, and it's going to be really interesting to see how all of the dominoes fall. I don't think the transfer window actually opens until the 19th of November. So until that point, we're not going to get any new signings confirmed. We'll just get re-signings confirmed up to that point. So it'll be so interesting to see how all of these chips fall and which teams are going to win the off season and which teams will unfortunately lose the off season.
Yeah, and that is something that is always super exciting for me at least because I love, the kind of the
Mm.
transfer window time where players are leaving, joining
Yeah,
all the different teams. It's super exciting thing to see because you can kind of already make guesses on how the seasons are gonna go, based off that.
yeah.
And
It gets me, excited again to watch North America, even though they had a poor Worlds showing. I just need to know how these new teams are going to perform. If this Team Liquid team happens, are they going to be the best? If not, what's going to happen? Do they blow up the team again in the mid-season?
yeah, I mean, we've seen in other games, where teams put together a superstar team. I know you obviously know about this as well, but FaZe Clan, when they signed all the superstars back
Yeah.
in 2018 for CSGO,
In this is for CS:GO,
yeah,
yeah.
when they signed all the superstars, and we saw how horribly that turned out eventually for them. Can we
Yeah.
potentially be seeing a repeat here? I hope not.
I mean, we'll see. We will definitely have to see how that goes. I can't think of any other off-season roster changes, rumors. Have you got any that I'm missing?
I don't think so. Not that I can
No.
see.
So the last thing that I wanted to talk about is something that we haven't even had a chance to talk about, which I think I just sent you in the video call chat. I don't know if you've seen. As of this afternoon or this evening UK time, the 2020 All-Star event has been confirmed, and I'm just going to break down what that looks like. Um, I'm trying to digest the post. So there's going to be an LCK and an LPL and an LTS and LEC portion. And then the major regions are also going to play against their nearby minor regions in some more fun ones. And then the major region ones is going to be slightly more competitive. And it's going to be over 4 days from the 18th to the 20th, with all the teams playing in their regions um, studios. But the most interesting part of this for me was the fact that they're going to have some influencers and some streamers involved in this as well for the first time, which I think is only going to benefit this type of tournament.
Yeah, I would agree. I think this format, like you said, it's going to be super exciting to watch. And I don't know when this announcement came out. It was today, right?
Literally this afternoon or
Yeah.
evening, literally as I was making dinner.
Yeah, and I think like what the whole League of Legends esports scene is doing right now is great, trying to incorporate more regions to get the spotlight on them. I think that's a great thing,
Yeah,
and like we saw with the play-ins as well, regions were able to excel in worlds as well. Regions that we haven't really seen
mm,
before do very well, and I think this again will bring light to those regions and give them even more potential to go on to win those bigger tournaments like Worlds or the other MSI, etc. So it will be
yeah,
super
and
super fun to watch as well, I think.
and the more content, the better. I think it'll be really interesting to see which pro players from each region gets voted in. I think voting is supposed to open from the 9th to the 16th of November, so I'll definitely be getting my votes in. And this year we can vote for one pro in each role in as many leagues as we not liked, whereas before you could only vote for the players in your region. So I think this is just a positive thing. When we didn't have MSI, the more competition we can have, the better at this point, even if it's a more light-hearted kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree, and I think League's always been good at kind of putting on these more light-hearted events, which
Yeah.
generally happened usually around the time of other events, back when,
Mm.
people could come and play at those events in real life. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
that can't happen now as freely as obviously we would all like to happen. But I think this
Yeah.
again is a great way of them reaching out to support other regions and putting on these fun kind of events. And I think it's a great thing, honestly.
Yes, definitely. And I can't wait just to watch more League after what was, I think, an amazing World Championships for 2020.
Agreed. I think it's the best one we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's all we've got to talk about this show, really. We're going to have more episodes coming over the off season. where we talk about more roster rumors before the trade window opens, and then we'll be giving our views and reviews and kind of giving you our power rankings for all the regions once we see their new lineups confirmed. And I think we'll also be doing at some point an episode about what the 2021 patch is going to look like, as I know a lot of massive changes are coming to preseason at the moment.
Yeah, and I don't know if you talked about Seraphine on the other podcast that you did by
No,
yourself.
she was released like the day afterwards.
Yeah, so she's the new champ, Seraphine, is a support, I believe,
Yeah.
and is
So designed as a mid laner, but currently performing significantly better in support.
yeah, and I think she sucks. Not gonna lie. Um, I think she's terrible. I
uh,
think she's just a bad Sona. But she has more
her
versatility in her kit at least. But then again,
her win rate is not looking very good at the moment. But I've been reading a number of tweets, sorry, by the Riot Balance team who are definitely have some interesting balances and buffs to her in the coming patches.
yeah, and I think it's honestly a good thing that they're kind of doing it this way round rather than making the champ super OP first release and then
Yes.
nerfing it.
Oh,
I think it's
yeah, that's the most annoying way to release a
yeah,
champion for
and
me.
that's traditionally been the way that Riot have really done it with the release of Yone recently and Lilia, who were both
And
super
Samira,
broken. Oh
yeah,
yeah, and Samira, who were all super
Samira was the
broken.
most bonkers one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't believe Samira got
But
onto the
yeah,
live patch. I can't believe how that happened.
it's do you know when you have to patch it 3 or 4 hours after it goes
Yeah,
live, you know that something went wrong in the quality assurance process because there's no way that the playtesters couldn't have found out how genuinely broken she was.
yeah, I think she's just a disgusting champ, and the fact it made it onto live servers just honestly makes my blood boil. But you know,
Feels bad.
Seraphine's not even getting banned at the moment, really. Um,
Yeah,
Whereas always when a new champ comes out, generally they're always banned for like a week or two at
yeah.
least.
That's what I do. Always ban the new
Yeah,
champion. I'm not gonna learn how it works
exactly.
immediately, so I just ban it and not worry about it.
Ban something you don't need to worry about it. You don't have to play against it.
Yeah.
Don't want to see it in your game.
Mm. Yeah. But I think on that note we'll kind of draw this episode to a close. So if you like the sound of more off-season rumors, team ratings, rankings, and predictions for 2021 seasons, and our kind of patch rundown for what will be a new season, then please consider following the channel, clicking follow on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, as we'll be bringing these out more regularly now that we're kind of getting back to normal a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't wait to hear about all the rumors in the news. I'm going to keep my eye on Twitter all week until we do
Yeah,
another podcast and make sure I take note of everything that's happening. And I cannot wait.
yeah.
I cannot wait for the season to start now, to be honest. I'm so excited,
I'm pumped. We might have to go play some League right now.
honestly.
So yeah, thank you everyone for listening. And we'll speak to you all next week.
Yes.